Snow buried the roofs, the power lines snapped, and the grocery store in Coldwater Bend was cleaned out before noon. By the fourth night, people were boiling snow in saucepans and counting crackers like medicine. But under one quiet backyard, an old man was picking warm tomatoes off a vine. Everyone in town had called him paranoid. The storm proved he had simply been early. The first person to understand that was Marcy Vale. She saw it through her kitchen window after 3 days without heat. A faint amber glow was pulsing beneath the snow beside Milo Arlen's house. Not a porch light, not a generator, a perfect slanted rectangle in the white, breathing little clouds of steam into the dark. Marcy thought she was hallucinating from hunger. Then she saw red. There were tomatoes under the glass. 2 months earlier, that same patch of yard had looked like a crime scene. A rented excavator sat behind Milo's house, its bucket biting into the frozen clay, with a sound that traveled through the whole neighborhood. Milo was 71, narrow-shouldered, gray-bearded, and almost silent. He had spent 38 years designing drainage systems for mountain roads, which meant he knew exactly what water did when people underestimated it. He also knew what snow could take. At 9 in the morning, the hole in his yard was already 8 feet deep. By lunch, it was deep enough that the top of his wool cap disappeared whenever he climbed down to measure the grade. Across the fence, Marcy watched with her phone pressed to her ear. "Grant, he's doing it again," she told the town administrator. "He's not building a shed. He's digging a pit. A real pit. If he hits a gas line, half the block goes with him." By afternoon, Administrator Grant Lyle arrived in a county truck with a clipboard, a city vest, and the annoyed confidence of a man who believed rules could hold back anything. Milo shut off the excavator. The sudden silence made the hole feel even larger. Grant stepped to the edge and looked down. "Milo, tell me this is not a bunker." "It's a winter garden," Milo said. "You are 12 feet into a residential lot. 17 by the end of the day." Grant rubbed his eyes. "That is not making this better." Milo climbed out of the trench, boots caked in clay. "It's earth, sheltered south-facing. Thermal mass on the back wall. Soil holds steadier temperature than air. The deeper you go, the less winter can touch it." Grant stared at him like he was listening to a foreign language. "There's a market 4 blocks away," he said. "There's a produce truck every Tuesday. We are not a frontier camp." Milo looked toward the mountain road at the end of town. That truck only comes when the road is there. Everybody in Coldwater Bend knew why Milo talked that way. 6 winters earlier, a rain-on snowslide had come down above the canyon and folded the highway under 40 feet of ice, mud, and spruce. Milo's wife, Elise, had gone into septic shock the same night. The local clinic had no surgical team. The helicopter could not lift in freezing rain. The ambulance made it 3 miles, then turned back. Milo sat beside Elise for 31 hours while the outside world existed only on the other side of a blocked road. After that, he stopped going to town meetings. He stopped waving from his porch. He started buying seed catalogs, old water tanks, solar batteries, and books with dirt on the covers. At first, people felt sorry for him. Then, sorry turned into jokes. By the time the excavator arrived, Coldwater Bend had already given him a nickname. Mole Milo. Grant wrote him a violation for unpermitted excavation, noise disturbance, and unsafe site exposure. He taped a red stop work order to the excavator door. "You have 10 days to fill this," Grant said. "After that, the county sends a crew and bills your property." Milo folded the paper once, then twice. "What day is it?" "The 7th. Milo tucked the notice into his coat pocket. "Then I have 9 days." Grant left angry. Milo restarted the excavator for the next week. The old man worked like he had made a private agreement with winter and intended to beat the deadline by inches. He dug below the frost line. He cut the floor with a gentle slope, so water would drain into a gravel trench instead of pooling at the roots. He stacked concrete block against the north wall, then sealed it with a rubberized membrane so ground moisture could not creep in and rot the frame. The roof was the strangest part. From the street, people could only see a low wedge of clear panels tilted toward the weak southern sun. But Milo had ordered greenhouse, grade polycarbonate thick enough to survive falling branches and heavy snow load. He bolted it to a timber frame built like a bridge truss, then ran insulated shutters along the upper edge. Inside, he built heat the way other people built rooms. Along the back wall, he lined up 12 black water barrels. During the day, they would drink in sunlight. At night, they would give that heat back slowly, like coals under ash. He added a small solar array on the tool shed roof, battery storage in the basement, and low-draw grow lights that could stretch the short winter days without burning through power. When a neighbor's teenage sons threw a plastic skull into the pit and laughed from the alley, Milo picked it up, set it on the fence post, and kept working. When the Coldwater Ledger ran a cartoon of him eating worms in a tuxedo, he bought 6 copies because newsprint was good for lining seed trays. When the grocery owner, Dale Mercer, saw him buying bulk beans, seed potatoes, kale starts, and a hand-crank grain mill, he grinned. Planning to outlive the rest of us, Milo counted out exact cash, planning to eat what grows. By the first week of December, the pit had disappeared. In its place was a small glass wedge barely rising above the snow line. It looked unimpressive from the road, almost like a misplaced skylight. But beneath it, Coldwater Bend had a second climate. Milo's underground garden was warm, damp, and alive. Cedar beds held spinach, mustard greens, and chard. Deep wooden boxes were packed with potatoes, beets, carrots, and winter squash. Trellises carried tomatoes and beans up the block wall. Basil grew in cracked coffee cans. 2 dwarf citrus trees stood in the corners, their leaves glossy under the soft violet wash of LEDs. Every detail had a reason. The black barrels stored heat. The buried walls stopped wind. The angled glass stole every inch of sun. The soil, 10 feet below the frozen surface, stayed close to 50 degrees even when the air above it dropped below zero. Milo had not built a bunker. He had built a lung, something that could keep breathing when the town stopped. Coldwater Bend stopped laughing only after it was too late. The storm arrived on a Thursday with a forecast so gentle people repeated it at breakfast. 6 inches by morning, the radio said, maybe 8 in the higher elevations. By 2 o'clock, the sky over the canyon went the color of iron. By 4, the wind hit with the force of a freight train. It did not snow downward, it flew sideways, in white sheets so thick the stop signs vanished from 20 feet away. The temperature fell 37 degrees before dinner. Doors froze shut. Car batteries died in driveways. Dogs refused to leave porches. At 6:18, a heavy fir split above the substation. The lights blinked once, then the whole valley went black. At first, people waited. They wrapped blankets around their shoulders, lit candles, checked their phones, and said the power company would have it fixed by morning. But morning came without power. T-power. The snow had stacked 5 feet against north-facing walls. Drifts rose over pickup beds. The canyon road was closed by 3 separate slides. The county plows were pulled back because drivers could not see the hood ornaments on their own trucks. By noon, the produce truck that everyone trusted was somewhere on the wrong side of the mountain. By 1, Dale Mercer opened the grocery store on a backup generator. By 2, the shelves looked like bones. People grabbed whatever their hands could reach. Rice crackers, cat food, bottled water, frosted cakes. A woman cried because someone took formula from her cart. 2 men shoved each other over a case of soup. Dale stood on a milk crate shouting that there was enough for everyone, while everyone proved him wrong. Grant Lyle used his county vest to get through the crowd and remove 3 cases of water for the emergency shelter. The crowd saw authority, then they saw the water leaving. That was when the shouting changed. By the second night, Coldwater Bend was no longer a town. It was 61 dark houses, each one becoming its own emergency. Pipes burst behind walls and froze into blue-white ropes. Fireplaces that had not been cleaned in years filled living rooms with smoke. Parents slept in winter coats beside children who shook in their dreams. Elderly people stayed in bed because moving wasted calories. Marcy Vale ate the last spoonful of peanut butter from the jar and scraped the sides with a knife until the plastic squealed. On the third morning, she looked toward Milo's house. His upstairs windows were black, his driveway was buried, his mailbox had vanished, but in the backyard, the snow was uneven. A long, slanted shape had melted clean around the edges. Beneath the frosted panels, light glowed in a soft purple band. Marcy stood there for a full minute trying to understand what she was seeing. Then a red blur appeared behind the condensation. It swung gently on a vine, a tomato. Marcy laughed once, a dry sound that hurt her throat. Then she started walking. The distance from her back door to Milo's yard was only 40 yards, but the snow came up to her waist. Every step stole breath. The cold entered through the seams of her gloves and bit into her fingers until they felt wooden. Halfway across, she fell. She almost stayed there. Then the wind lifted enough for her to smell something impossible. Warm earth. She crawled the last 10 feet. Her hands found a wooden hatch half buried beside the glass. She beat on it with both fists. Once, twice. Again, below her, inside the garden, Milo was tying a bean vine when the sound came through the roof. A dull knock. Then another. He froze. For a moment he did not move at all, because he knew that sound. It was the outside world arriving at the door it had mocked. Milo climbed the stairs and forced the hatch open against the packed snow. Wind screamed through the gap. He found Marcy folded against the frame, her face gray, eyelashes crusted white, lips moving without sound. He did not ask why she had come. He dragged her down the steps and slammed the hatch shut. The storm vanished overhead, cut off like a radio. Inside the garden, water dripped from leaves. The air was 70 degrees. The black barrels breathed heat into the narrow room. Basil, soil, and citrus filled the silence. Marcy opened her eyes and stared upward. Tomatoes hung above her like ornaments from another planet. Milo wrapped her in a thermal blanket, pulled off her frozen gloves, and put a tin cup into her hands. The broth was made from potatoes, charred stems, salt, and a spoonful of beans. It was thin, to Marcy. It tasted like being pulled back from the edge. She tried to speak. I called Grant. I know. I told him you were dangerous. You were cold, Milo said. Drink before it cools. She cried into the cup. For 2 days, Marcy stayed under the earth. She watched Milo work and realized the garden was not abundance in the way a grocery store was abundance. It was not piles and shelves and choices. It was a living machine balanced on discipline. He harvested outer leaves so plants could keep growing. He loosened soil around root crops without tearing the fine feeder strands. He moved water from barrel to keep temperature stable. He pollinated tomato blossoms with a buzzing toothbrush because no bee would ever find this place under 6 feet of snow. He was not hiding food. He was maintaining life. Above them, hunger kept spreading. By the 5th day, Grant Lyle's emergency shelter had no water left. The generator at Town Hall had coughed itself dry. His own kitchen held half a sleeve of crackers, 3 tea bags, and a jar of olives. No one wanted badly enough yet. His wife's hands would not stop trembling. That was when Grant remembered the violation notice. The deep pit, the glass wedge. The old man who had said the truck only comes when the road is there. Grant gathered Dale Mercer and 2 brothers from the volunteer fire crew. He told them they were checking on a vulnerable resident. He carried a shotgun because wolves had been coming down toward the houses. That was what he told himself. They reached Milo's porch after an hour of fighting drifts. The front door was frozen shut, so they broke a kitchen window and climbed through. The house was dead cold. A layer of ice shone across the floorboards where a pipe had burst. Cabinets stood open. The stove was empty. In the living room, Marcy's abandoned scarf lay stiff as a board near the back door. Dale looked around and whispered, "He's gone." Grant turned toward the backyard. A thin plume of steam was rising from a pipe in the snow. They found the hatch and cleared it with gloved hands. Grant knocked once, then twice, then lost patience. Hunger had a way of making authority feel like permission. He jammed a pry bar under the latch. The hatch flew open. Warm air rushed out in a wet breath. Grant went down first, shotgun held across his chest. The others followed, then stopped halfway down the stairs. No one spoke. The garden glowed beneath them, green and impossible tomatoes. Greens, potato bins, water barrels, herbs, warmth, food in that moment. The difference between preparation and miracle became too painful to look at directly. Milo stood at the far end of the path holding a shovel. Marcy stood beside him with a crate of greens. Grant's eyes moved over the beds like a starving animal's. "Milo," he said, voice cracked. "Under emergency authority, I am taking control of this structure and its food supply." Milo did not raise the shovel. "No," Grant blinked. "People are starving." "I know. Then move. If you pull everything at once, you kill it. These plants are not cans on a shelf. You tear out the wrong roots and the garden is finished in 3 days." Grant lifted the shotgun a few inches. Dale stepped between them so fast the barrel hit his coat. "Grant," Dale said, "lower it." "My wife is freezing," Grant shouted. "So is everybody's," Marcy said. Grant's face twisted. He knew this could happen. Milo's voice filled the chamber hard and low. "I dug this in daylight. You cited me for it. People laughed from the sidewalk. I did not hide the warning. You just hated the shape it came in." The shotgun trembled. For a few seconds, the only sound was water dripping from a tomato leaf into the soil. Then Grant lowered the barrel. The fight went out of him so completely, he seemed to shrink. "I don't know how to keep them alive," he said. Milo looked at him, and for the first time in years, anger was not the strongest thing in his chest. He saw a frightened man pretending to be a wall because everyone else needed one. He remembered Elisa's hand in his, the clinic lights, the useless phone calls, the road buried under ice while time ran out. He had built the garden so he would never again have to depend on people who could not get through. But now people had reached him anyway, not with rescue, with need. Milo set down the shovel. "You don't take control," he said. "You take orders." Grant looked up. Milo pointed to the water barrels. "Those are thermal mass, not storage tanks, but I can spare some if we refill with melted snow in rotation. The potatoes come up last. Greens first, outer leaves only. Beans get stretched. Squash gets saved for children and elders. No one enters the beds without me or Marcy. No one touches a root crown. Dale handles rations because he knows inventory. Your fire crew hauls snow and firewood. You want to help this town start carrying," nobody argued. That was how the underground garden became the heart of Coldwater Bend, not a feast, a pulse. Every day, teams came through Milo's frozen house and down into the warm earth with buckets of snow. They melted it in dented stockpots over controlled fires. Dale measured stew into cups with the severity of a banker. 1 cup per person per day. More for children, more for diabetics, more for the old. People complained until they saw Milo's face, and they stopped. The food was not enough to make anyone comfortable. It was only enough to keep bodies from shutting down. Potato skins, beet greens, kale stems, beans cooked until they disappeared. Thin slices of squash floating like coins in broth, but every cup had heat, every cup had minerals, every cup told the body. Not yet. Milo slept in pieces, 20 minutes beside the barrels, 10 minutes in a chair near the hatch, then back up to check the glazing brush snow away from the vent, test battery levels, rotate trays, pinch off damaged leaves, and guard the fragile math that kept 61 households alive. Marcy became the gatekeeper. She had once reported the whole. Now she stood at the hatch with a list, letting people in by shift and throwing them out if they reached for anything without permission. On the 8th day, a boy of 16 slipped behind a trellis and tried to pocket a tomato. Marcy caught his wrist. He started crying before she said a word. "My little sister keeps asking for real food," he whispered. Marcy looked at the tomato in his hand. Then she looked at Milo. Milo took the fruit, cut it into 8 thin pieces, and sent 1 slice to the boy's sister. The other 7 went to the clinic room at Town Hall. That night, nobody called him Mole Milo. On the 11th day, the storm ended, not gently. It simply stopped, as if the sky had run out of violence. Coldwater Bend woke under a blue, so bright it hurt to see. The mountains were buried to the timberline. Chimneys stuck out of drifts like broken pencils. The canyon road was still gone. Then came a sound the town had been waiting to hear for almost 2 weeks. Not wind. Engines, 2 National Guard helicopters lifted over the ridge, followed by a convoy of tracked snow machines crawling up the old logging road. Their rotors hammered the snow into glittering clouds. People stumbled from houses, waving blankets, pans, mirrors, anything that could catch light. The rescue crews expected casualties. They found hunger, frostbite, exhaustion, burst pipes, smoke damage, fear, but they did not find the dead town they had prepared for. At the emergency shelter, the guard captain asked Grant how 61 households had survived 11 days cut off from heat, deliveries, and road access. Grant looked toward Milo's house for once. He did not reach for his title, he pointed. In the backyard, Milo was closing the hatch with both hands, slow from exhaustion. Steam curled around him and vanished in the cold. Spring came late that year, when the plows finally carved the canyon road open. Reporters came with cameras and soft voices. They wanted the old man who had saved a mountain town with an underground greenhouse. Milo let Dale answer questions. He let Grant stand beside the glass wedge and explain frost lines, thermal mass, and why permits were being rewritten to allow Earth-sheltered food systems. He let Marcy show children how to brush tomato flowers with a vibrating toothbrush. But Milo did not give speeches. He replanted. By June, half the manicured lawns in Coldwater Bend had been cut open for raised beds, root cellars, or small greenhouses. Dale stocked seeds next to batteries. The fire crew learned how to clear vents without collapsing a roof. The town bought a community water purifier and stored it somewhere. No storm could bury it. Milo kept the hatch repaired, but he stopped locking it. Not because he trusted the weather, because he finally trusted the people. The next winter, when snow began stacking against the houses again, Coldwater Bend did not panic the same way. They had generators checked. They had soup rosters printed. They had seedlings under lamps in basements all over town. And under Milo Arlen's backyard, tomatoes ripened in the warm, dark red against the green, proof that survival was never about fear. Fear only digs a hole. Preparation turns it into a garden.